Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consul General of India in Durban, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Mr. Duncan Rice, Ms. Paula Martini, Mr. Kamal Maharaj, Mr. Sipiwe Mchunu, Mr. Piyush Khandelwal, distinguished guests, online viewers, namaskar and welcome to the fifth episode of Yoga Charcha. Yoga Charcha is a discussion of yoga, a series of interactions with experts on yoga. Indeed, to commence today's program, I would like to welcome Mr. Kamal Maharaj, the CEO and founder of Vishwa Shakti. Kamalji is also an educator, and this program is in association with Vishwa Shakti. Namaste and welcome, Kamalji.
Namaste, Shrishti Namaste, Dr. Yogi, uh, and Piyush ji, all our team that has been putting the Yoga Charcha series, getting this out to the public. And yes, today very, very important. Our yoga expert, our special guest, Dr. I would like to call you Dr. Duncan Rice. And in terms of your experience, I think we are privileged to have you on our program today. In fact, the modern world has been taken by storm by an art form that is more than 6,000 years old, and that is yoga. You know, a new survey conducted by the Yoga Alliance in the Yoga Journal reported that the number of Americans, just in one country they took, yoga, the number of people conducting yoga has more than doubled. In fact, far more than 20 million. Just one country. So you can imagine with the 196 countries doing yoga on International Yoga Day, how much more yoga has spread throughout the world. In fact, yoga has this ability to give us a healthier lifestyle. And the survey found that people who do yoga are far more physically active than those who don't. It's something for us to think about. In fact, some persons have written that yoga is like a daily breakfast for them. And when they get up in the morning and they miss the yoga session, they feel weak and lethargic. So you see, it has become part and parcel of an individual's life. Today, I think we're going to be really privileged for Paula Martini, our other yoga expert, who's going to take us forward and interact with Dr. Duncan Rice. In fact, let me hand over, and I'm going to be listening carefully. I really enjoy learning about yoga each time we meet our yoga experts. Thank you so much, Shrishti.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamal Maharaj, for those introductory remarks on episode 5 of Yoga Charcha. Sit back, relax, as we get to interact with the very dynamic Mr. Duncan Rice, who will be interacting with Ms. Paula Martini, a yoga practitioner. Just a bit about Mr. Duncan Rice. Duncan G has been practicing and studying yoga for many years. He is now a vegan yoga teacher and follow the path of ahimsa, non-violence. He has advanced qualifications through the International Yoga Alliance certification, but has also studied in many of India's old Hatha yoga institutions and has lived in India for a number of years, and says it's wonderful to bring Devon the ancient Indian philosophy of yoga. His father was also a yoga teacher. He lived in Kolkata, India, and practiced Hatha Yoga since the 1940s. He remained young, free from illness, and continued to teach yoga until the age of 85. Thanks to him, Duncanji always realized the benefits and was an example to him of how Hatha Yoga could keep you fit, mind, body, and soul. Also, the immense advantages for older people, particularly warding off illnesses, keeping the mind and body in equilibrium. Just a bit, Duncanji is also ran away from India last year and has settled now in Durban and started a community yoga group called the Yoga. And this is his service or seva, and the idea to build a community of like-minded yoga practitioners who share and contribute to the mutual development of opening up yoga for all. Namaste and welcome, Mr. Duncan Rice and Ms. Paula Martini, today for your interaction on the 5th episode of Yoga Charcha.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and it's such an absolute privilege to be meeting you today, Duncan. Even just the brief conversation we've had before we started, I'm really looking forward to hearing your answers on today's questions. So if you'd like to get started, that would be great. Our first question is, how do you understand or define yoga?
Okay, well, thank you, Paula G. It's really lovely to be here with this beautiful group of people. And I would like to just correct one point from Kamal G. Actually, and this is for Dr. Yogi, who is a doctor, or has a doctorate. I don't have a doctor, but my initials are DR, and I think maybe that's where the confusion came in. And one of the things is, the more I learn about yoga, the less I know. I just find there's such a vast ocean of knowledge from the Indian continent about yoga that every time I learn something new, I discover something more. And it's the most beautiful, beautiful thing, yoga. Those of you who want to learn it for the first time, you can start with simple steps, but there's so much knowledge out there, and we're gaining this knowledge all the time from each other. So it's amazing having this forum that you've created to share about yoga. So what is yoga? Well, yoga, as we all know, and as the general definition goes around, is union, but it's much more than that. Patanjali, who wrote the Yoga Sutras about 2,600 years ago, he defined yoga as yogam chitra vritra yohodaham. And that means to curtail the fluctuations of the mind. And how we do that? Well, it's through a beautiful, beautiful process. And he laid down an 8-step path, starting with how we kind of live our lives. And this is the yamas and the niyamas. And these yamas and niyamas start with the very first one, which is ahimsa, which is non-violence. So any practitioner of yoga should start to understand that they need to start living their life with non-violence. And it's an interesting fact that when we start to live our life through non-violence, and that includes all beings, the whole process of yoga starts. And this is how Patanjali laid it out. And we go through various other things like from non-violence to purity, etc. And then we come on to asana. Asana is just one aspect of 8 points of yoga. Asana was number 3 in Patanjali's 8-fold process. And then from asana, we come to pranayama. Pranayama, very, very important. Slowing of the breath. It's not just breathing, it's slowing down of the breath. And by slowing down of the breath, the mind slowly becomes calmer. And then we are able to withdraw from the energy of our senses. We're living our lives through our sense energy. And we call that praktihara. These are the words that Patanjali used. But it's just withdrawing from the energy of our senses. And then we work through dharana, which is one-pointed focus. So from that, when we can calm the energy through the breath and withdrawing inwards from that energy of senses, we're able to focus on one point. And the one point becomes the point of meditation, which becomes this number 7, dhyana, as Patanjali said, which is meditation. And then the final stage is our link with our infinite consciousness, and that understanding, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, but our link with the infinite consciousness, and that's samadhi and bliss. So that was the path that Patanjali laid out. So it's very different from sometimes the yoga that we see in the gyms, and which is more physical, and it's still yoga, of course, they're using yoga asanas. But the actual path of yoga that I follow is this path and this belief. And it's open to all faiths, all religions. There was no mention of following Hinduism in Patanjali Sutras. There was no mention of following any other religion. We can all practice this, whatever faith we follow, whatever cultural background we come from. And this is the great beauty of the practice of yoga.
I couldn't actually agree more. It is just, yeah, amazing. So tell me, how did you get connected? We heard a little bit about your father and how you've grown up with it. And yeah, tell us a little bit from onwards, how you kept the connection and are where you are.
So, Paulaji, I started off as a child of a yogi, basically, who was living in Cape Town at the time. I was born in Cape Town many years ago. My father would be doing yoga every day. He was, when he taught yoga, I would see him standing on his head. And of course, as children, you don't want to get involved in that. And I thought, what's this esoteric stuff he's doing? Don't want to do it. I did practice. I did some of the asanas with him, of course, as a fun thing. But he always tried to. He kept saying to me, "You must practice yoga. You must practice yoga." And even when I went to university and then went to live in the UK, I lived in the UK for 20 years. I would still see my father, and he would talk to me about yoga. He had all these yoga books in his house, and I would occasionally open them and have a look and see what they were about and learn a little bit. But it didn't really hit me. And I was involved in a very high-pressured job. I run an international drama school, but I came to Cape Town to set up the Cape Town Academy. We came very, very big. We had 4,000 students who used to attend the academy. We were doing something like 240 productions a year, which is almost a production a week. It worked out, and it was quite crazy. And I just noticed that my mind was so busy, and I couldn't even sleep at night. And through that, because of this mental state of agitation, I started to put on weight. My blood pressure went up, and I realized I had to do something. So I actually started off at the gym. So I went to the gym, and I started to go to yoga classes. I started to do gym classes, and then I saw this advertisement for yoga classes. So I went along to the yoga classes, and I started to do yoga classes, and something changed in me. I luckily had some good yoga teachers at the start, and I started to sense how that memory that we store in our muscles, because cells store memory, that we can start to release that through the practice of yoga. Those, as we call now in yoga, I didn't understand this then, but as we call the sanskaras, the past impressions. Now, the past impressions are not only stored in our mind, but are also stored in our body. And through this practice of holding a posture and staying in the posture and the body getting healthy again, slowly this starts to affect the mind. And I just realized that there's something more profound in this. And maybe genetically, through my father, I have a propensity to go on the study of yoga. And I then suddenly realized I need to go and study this further. So I went on my first journey to India, to Mysore or Mysuru, to do my first practice, and only really to learn about the yoga philosophy and a little bit more about what yoga is about. And it was phenomenal and changed my whole perspective about what yoga is, and my life changed. I mean, my blood pressure came back to normal. I lost weight. My heart rate came down, and in fact, I noticed that I could slow my heart rate down even with the practice of pranayama, which is just a phenomenal practice and very scientific. It's not some voodoo thing. It's a very scientific practice of calming the mind, and the ancient yogis found this, and through, of course, the Ayurveda as well. On the other side, the medicine side, they had so much knowledge about the body and how to deal with the body mind, and so then I started to go back to India, studying at different institutions, some of the oldest institutions, mainly for Hatha Yoga. I practice Hatha Yoga myself. There are other forms of yoga, but I find the teachings of Hatha Yoga, which are some of the oldest teachings that we have and written down, apart from Patanjali, of course, the Vedas, of course. I've just got deeper and deeper into this understanding. So I've studied in Kaivalyadam in Lonavala as well, and in Rishikesh, and in Kolkata at the Shivananda Yoga Hospital. A different Shivananda from the Shivananda of Rishikesh, I discovered. There's an Assam Shivananda, amazing man. I've got all his texts and books, and he had a huge understanding, Swami Shivananda Saraswati of Assam, and I've learned so much, and so lucky when I was in Kolkata to be able to study there as well. So yeah, so that's kind of my yoga journey, and it's changed my life. It's been revolutionary.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, do you feel any different in your own life? And I think you definitely are testament to that with all the changes that you've gone through.
I think the mental change is important. I mean, I think they say something like 80% of physical illnesses are caused by the mental. So, we need to really more and more focus on the mental side. And, the yoga, the asana, yes, it does help, but the pranayama is a hugely beneficial practice. And meditation, of course, leading to the meditation techniques are really important for the mind. Yeah, really revolutionary in my life. I mean, I've hardly had a day's illness since doing the yoga. It's quite amazing. Yeah,
I think many people will say the same thing. It literally is life-changing. I think when you really get into the practice of it and you go to all the different limbs of yoga and not just the exercise side, which is what most people know, it really is life-changing, and I can see just from hearing what you've had to say, definitely life-changing.
Absolutely. I think if people can go and actually study yoga a little deeper and understand actually what yoga is fully about, then it is, you're quite right. Yeah.
And you've mentioned quite a few practices, but your specific style or school of yoga?
Yes. Okay. Hatha Yoga is, as I said to you earlier, is one of the older traditional. There are three main texts that it's written in. One of them being, of course, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, but there's the Giran Samhita and another text on yoga. And these were written about 600 years ago, and they came from basically the tantric line of understanding. But what's amazing, they have a systematic process of doing yoga as well. So maybe through Patanjali and through the tantric tradition, through India and gurus passing down, eventually someone came together and said, right, let's write this down. So so the Hatha Yoga process is about cleansing, first of all. Before we even start the yoga, we need to start to cleanse the body. And we call those the shatkamas. There's 6 shatkamas to cleanse the body from the top down. We start with the nasal area, and there are various techniques that we use for that, even one pranayam, which is called Kapalabhati breath. And then we work through the body, cleansing all through the body. Amazing techniques, need to be taught by a qualified Hatha yoga practitioner, but you can practice them at home. And then following that is the asana, and which is the postures, and then there's the pranayam as well. And those 3 things are the most important things, but Hatha yoga has one more important thing, and this is called awareness. So through these practices, we are creating awareness of what the physical body is happening in the physical body. We're creating an awareness of what's happening in the energetic body. As you know, we're all energetic bodies. If you rub your hands together and you put your hands at your face, you'll feel the energy of your body coming through. So this energy, which we call prana, is flowing in the body. And we're trying to tap into, in Hatha yoga, we're trying to tap in an understanding of the energy and feel the energy moving in the body. And as we can start to understand that energy, we can start to feel where the energy is moving, and maybe start to feel it moving up our main central line, which moves up the main energy center. We have 72,000 energy centers in the body called nadis. And the idea is to move it with the asana and the pranayam to unblock those, so we can start to become aware of those energy centers, and particularly we have 7 main. We've got many main what we call chakras. They're also in the lower chakras in the lower part of the body, but we have 7 main ones which move up the spine, and to try and move up that spine, or that central path area. It's not actually up the spine. It's a more subtle energy pathway, but it's situated roughly around that area, and move up, and that leads us to higher states of understanding or consciousness. So that's what the Hatha yoga is, to have awareness of the body, awareness of the energy in the body, but also to have awareness of the mind. When we start to have awareness of what our mind is doing, then we can move into the areas of meditation, because we're able to then still the mind by understanding how the mind works, and also to start to release those sanskaras from the mind, so those past impressions, because the past impressions create the blockages for us to move forward. Past impressions create the disturbed mind. These past impressions are like triggers in our life. So, for instance, if we have a fear of spiders, for instance, something triggered us to have that fear of spiders. So it sits in our subconscious, but through yoga, we can release that through these practices. So this is really fundamentally what Hatha yoga is about. It's about creating pure awareness of the body, the energy that moves in the body, and the mind.
Amazing explanation. I'm actually taking notes. Well, if you see me looking down, it's because I'm actually writing. That's such wonderful insight. And do you feel yoga is not only a physical exercise or a scheduled activity, but is integrated approach and understanding to life in its entirety?
Absolutely. I mean, it is. Well, I've kind of said that now. Yeah. I mean, yoga is a pure integrated life. It's how we live our life. As I said earlier, we start with the very first thing is to try and start to live our life with non-violence, and that means, not being angry at people around you. And it's a natural thing as human beings to get angry. And again, that's a trigger from our
when the ego kicks in.
Yeah, so yeah, it's an integrated life of how we live. And as we said earlier, I think it's an understanding that we are in fact actually one. When we get to that level of moving to understanding through meditation who we are, because this is where yoga is leading us. It's leading us to discover who we are, our true self. And in yoga, we call that the Atman. So when we discover that, we can link that Atman with the infinite consciousness. And whatever your belief system, if you don't believe in God, it might be God. You're linking yourself with God or the divine. But if you don't believe, if you're an atheist, linking yourself with the universe or the nature around you, understanding that we are all connected with the nature. In fact, we're made of the 5 elements, so we are in huge connection, but we lose that connection. And it's just about us coming back to discover that beautiful connection that we have. Yeah, so it's a whole life, and it's a way we live our life. Yeah.
Absolutely. Back to basics.
Yes.
And do you feel that yoga is an art and science, which gives us a sense of affinity and connectedness with the entire universe?
Absolutely. Well, we've just said that. We kind of said that, but let me just say one thing. Swami Shivananda of Rishikesh, because I was talking about Swami Shivananda of Assam. Swami Shivananda of Rishikesh really said that, and he said, the first thing to gain this understanding, we need to learn to serve others, and through the service of others, and this is, I believe very strongly about this, and I think you mentioned in my biography at the start that this is exactly what I believe. If we can learn to, in our world, to serve others, then we start to come to understanding what this connection is about. Because if we can learn to, as Swami Shivananda said, if we can learn to serve first, then we can learn to love. And it's only through loving, as he said, we can learn to give and learn what true giving is. And then only through that do we become pure as a person. And I don't mean like, free of sin or whatever, but just a pure living person. And then he said we were able to meditate, and then we are able to realize or come to self-realization. So this is really the path that we want to follow. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And do you we've touched on so many of the things, but do you feel that yoga represents a universal energy or universal love and compassion? And we spoke about that now with regards to service, and I really do love your opinion and your comments on that service of others, because I have a strong belief system of that myself. So you explain. I get so excited, sorry.
Well, absolutely. And I think, just going back to what I said earlier is, just through serving others, this is an amazing thing we can and it's unconditional service. And the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, a beautiful text from India, mentions this about doing karma yoga or action for other people, and that when we do the service, that if we can do the service without any reward, then this is true service. Many people go out there and help other people, and then they want the adulation from that. But if we can truly learn to give to other people without expecting anything back in return, this is what true love is about, and love in the community. And we discover this through yoga. There's no doubt about it. You will discover that everyone around you, even those people that you might even regard as your enemies, and this is a human thing that we create through the mind, that we create these barriers. And in South Africa, for instance, apartheid created these barriers that we all were living separately, and created this thing in our minds but it was just in the mind. It was, it was an oppression that was created by a government, and we get these impressions all the time, created by so many different influences. And so, yes, we can get rid of these, and we can really learn to love in the purest sense. And in my opinion, it starts with the service for others.
Yes, couldn't agree more. So well put, really, really well put. And would you kindly suggest some simple asanas for us and for our viewers this evening?
Okay, so what I want to do is just to say that I practice Hatha Yoga, and I try and practice more of the older postures that were written down, and there are about 32 which we know, which were written in the ancient texts. So my thought is that I will suggest 5 of these that we can practice, and you can feel that connection with the ancient people who were also practicing these asanas. So I'm going to show you 5 of these very powerful postures that you can do, no matter what your ability. If you're a complete beginner, I'm going to show you the beginning version of the postures, and then you can take them further. So we're going to start with standing, and then we're going to move down. So come to standing on your mat or in the room. And so this first posture is called Vrikshasana. And Vrikshasana is the tree posture. We see so many poses of people doing this, but often this is a very hard posture for people to do. But there's an entry point posture for this, which you can try. So if you're unable to do the first one, which is to bring the heel right up the leg and place it at the top of the thigh, then you can do this posture. And I'm just going to show you it sideways. You can bend the right knee, and you can bring the heel to the buttocks and then raise the left arm up. That's the first stage of the tree posture, just to work on the balance. Now, if you find your balance is a little bit difficult, then my suggestion is that you just work with the wall initially. Eventually, we'll want to move away from having the wall, so you can learn to balance by yourself. I will tell you the benefits of this posture and why this posture is so important in a moment. But first, we're going to do the classic one, and there are also entry points into this classic Vrikshasana. So the first thing is to bend the right knee, and you bring the heel against the side. Now, for some of you, this might be where you can stay today, as you just balance here and try and work with your balance. So the first stage is to try and work with balance. And to work with the balance, we need to focus on a point directly in front of us on the wall. And we bring our hands to the heart center here, just to start off with. Those of you who then would like to bring the foot up, you can slowly bring the foot up, maybe just a little bit higher, and play with the balance and bring it down as you start to work with your own balance. And this takes a number of days before you can maybe even do this. So this might be your position today as you try and balance, and if you fall out, you just bring the foot down gently. For those of you who would like a little bit of a challenge, you bring the heel up as high as you can, except you don't put the heel onto the knee area because you'll compromise the knee joint. You want to get the knee parallel to the back of your mat, and you bring your hands together. And those of you who wish to can then take the hands straight up, stretching up to the ceiling and powering into the left leg. You start to do long, deep breathing here through the nose, and don't hold the breath. So this posture is very powerful because you're working into the muscles in the legs, you're working into the joints, the knee and the ankle and the hips. You're also working into the core muscles, because to keep yourself up here, you have to use the core muscles. And you're also working into the shoulders. So this is a very, very powerful posture in the sense on the physical side of the body. You then bring the hands after 5 breaths down to the heart center, place the hands on the hips, and you bring that leg down. And we do the same on the left side. We just feel the balance to start. Those of you who want to do the modified version by bending the heel behind you and taking up the right hand can do it that way. Otherwise, you just bring the heel into the side and you start to feel the balance. When you're ready, you might want to just try and see if you can lift the foot up onto the side of the leg and just play with your balance today. Otherwise, you bring the heel on the left side all the way up to the side of the leg, and then you bring your hands to the heart center and you slowly can take the hands up. So the other benefit of this posture is that it helps you to calm the mind, because we become really, really focused on a point in front of us and the mind becomes still. So it's a very good posture, believe it or not, to help with anxiety and any troubles that you might have. So you stretch up as high as you can, breathing long, deep breaths through the nose. And remember, in yoga, we breathe through the nose as much as we can. And then we bring the hands back to the heart center, back onto the hips, and we bring the foot down. Now, one of the things that I spoke about in Hatha Yoga is about awareness. And this is where we come to look at the body by closing the eyes and taking the hands behind the back and clasping the left wrist with the right hand. Just close the eyes gently and just notice firstly what's happening on the physical level. The blood flowing back, particularly into the muscles in the leg. You might even feel that. The heart might be beating a little bit faster, blood flowing around the body. And then you try and focus on what's happening on a subtle energy level. So we call this the prana. Just see if you can feel warmth or tingling, or maybe you might even be able to pick up a kind of a sound moving in the body. Just see if you can find that and focus on that moving in the body. It will be particularly in this posture in the hips and the legs. And this is what we call our pure awareness. And while you're focusing on this, you might want to just check in to your thoughts. And be aware that as the thoughts come up, you want to really see if you can notice the thoughts and be aware of the thoughts rather than be the thoughts themselves. So normally we just get carried away with our thoughts, but here we try to have full awareness of the thoughts that we have. So the first posture is a standing posture. So the sequence we normally do in Hatha Yoga, we start with standing. We then come to our seated posture. And the seated posture today is going to be Paschimottanasana. And again, this is written in the ancient text, one of the very, very powerful postures. And I'll give the benefits to you as we go into the posture. We normally hold this posture for about 15 breaths. Sometimes people find this very difficult because the back is leaning back. So you can bring a cushion underneath the buttocks to stabilize you, and to bring the hips slightly forward, tilting the back forward a little bit so it makes this posture easier for you to go into. We stretch up with the hands, really stretching up to the sky, trying to stretch through the crown of the head as we come forward. So there's a two-way movement. We're stretching up through the spine and coming forward, and then we just bring the hands down, either to the shins, or if we can, we grab the big toes. And then we slowly can bend the elbows outwards as we come forward. Breathing long, deep breaths. So maybe you've heard of the practice of yin yoga. Yin yoga is holding postures for about 5 minutes. In the traditional sense of yoga, we used to hold the postures for a much longer period. It's only with the modern practices that we have these fast flowing practices. But the original intention was to hold the postures for a long time. So if you're holding your shin, you're just moving forward. And this posture is just amazing for the back, the lower back particularly, the muscles in the lower back, stretching out the vertebra, making space for the discs, and also working in the nervous system, including, this is a very good posture for the sciatic nerve. And we just keep moving down. Those of you who find it quite easy can take the hands over the feet, bending the elbows down to the shins and coming forward a little bit more. Again, pulling through the crown of the head as we come forward and down. And in this posture, we can make the most progress. Just moving forward and down. And this posture is also very good for the hamstrings, of course, the hips. And it's another posture which creates a great release from the body of any pressures that we have in our life as we slowly melt down to the floor. It's believed we store a lot of anxiety in the hips, and this can be released through this beautiful forward movement and opening of the hips. Those people who want to can bring the hands down around the fronts of the feet and then come further forward. So we're here for 15 breaths, and we feel that beautiful, beautiful stretch in the back. So we're really stretching out the spine, and the postures that I'm doing with you today, and particularly the Hatha Yoga postures, are really, really good for the spine. Really making the spine young and flexible. And then you're going to slowly come up, and we're now going to come into a counter posture to this posture, which is called Bhujangasana. And again, there's a beginning point for this posture, as well as a full posture, which I will show you. So we're going to come and lie on our stomachs. The first phase of this posture, you can do what we call Saral Bhujangasana, or the Sphinx posture. So you bring your hands out in front of you, the elbows are directly underneath your shoulders, and you bring your toes together, heels together, and then you're just going to push into your elbows and drop the head back as you come into this beautiful, beautiful posture to stretch out into the back. Those of you who are able to do it are going to bring the hands underneath the shoulders, and we're going to do the Bhujangasana. So you bring the forehead onto the mat, elbows into the side, toes together, heels together. And again, most people can do this, and it's just a case of slowly lifting the chin and feeling the vertebra rounding from the neck down as you push up. And you might just come up to this position with the arms bent. You need to keep the pelvis on the floor at all the time, and then you slowly push up to as high as you can come. If you feel any pain or pinching in the back, you need to bend the elbows and come down. And you can also part the feet as well to help in this posture. Try and keep the toes together, the heels together if you can. And then you soften the shoulders down and you drop the head back. So you're moving forward with the crown of the head again as you move back, so to stretch out the spine a little bit as you go into the posture, and we hold this for 5 breaths. This posture is fantastic for the organs in the pelvic region, particularly the cervix and the ovaries for women, the prostate gland for men. It's very good for the abdominal organs, particularly the endocrine system, but most particularly it's really good for your kidneys, helping the kidneys to function properly. And with the head dropping back, if you can drop the head back, you are working into the thyroid and the parathyroid gland. So it's a really, really good posture. And of course, we're working into the spine and the nervous system, really strengthening the muscles in the back to help us to avoid any back problems, particularly lower back problems. And then we're just going to slowly lower down to the mat. And here we're going to rest in Makarasana. So you bring your hands on top of each other. You place the forehead on top of the backs of the hands. You take the feet out as wide as the mat and you turn the toes outwards. And this is the crocodile posture, and it's a resting posture. Just to rest the spine for a moment. And then we're going to move. The next posture we're going to do on our back. And this is Matsyasana, the fish. And this is also a counter posture for that strong back bend we've just done. And we're going to come and lie on our back. We're going to bring the heels together, the toes together, and the hands by the side of the body. We're then going to bend the knees, and we're going to lift up the buttocks. We're going to bring the hands together underneath the buttocks with the thumbs touching and the palms facing down. And then we're going to slowly lower the buttocks onto the backs of the hands. We're then going to stretch our legs straight. And we're going to sit up onto our elbows. So you're going to just sit up onto your elbows and you're going to bring the elbows inwards as close as you can get them. And then from here, you're going to puff up your chest and you're going to very, very gently see if you can drop the head, the crown of the head, onto the floor behind you. Very gently, opening the throat. So in this posture, we're really, really opening the throat area. We're really working into the thyroid, the parathyroid gland, also into the pituitary, as well as the pineal gland. So it's very, very good for those glands in the head and neck. And it's very, very good for the chest, opening the lungs. Very, very good posture to do. Even helping with ailments such as asthma. And then we're going to slowly lower down. So we remove the hands from the buttocks, lower the head down, and just for a moment we rest in the corpse pose, Shavasana. So we part the legs, we part the arms, and tuck the chin and lower the back of the head onto the mat just for a few moments, just to release the body. It takes about 16 seconds for the body to come, or the muscles in the body to come to their relaxed position. So we allow this to happen and allow the blood to flow back. And this is the healing process of Hatha Yoga. So we're going to bring the knees into the chest and we're just going to rock up to sitting to end with the final posture that I'm doing with you today. Also one of the ancient postures. All these postures are part of the 32 most important postures that have been written in the ancient texts. So we're doing some really, really old postures here, which is beautiful for you to feel the benefits moving through your own body. And now we're going to bend the right knee. We're going to take the right foot over the left and place the foot beside the knee over the left. We're doing Ardha Matsyendrasana. This is the Lord of the Fish posture. And we're going to then take the left hand and place it on the right knee. And we're going to take the right hand behind the back, keeping that left foot straight, stretch up through the crown of the head, and then you're going to twist around to the right. So twists are really, really good to do at the end of a practice because they correct any problems with the vertebra and the discs, aligning them back into their rightful position. And also twists are very, very good for the abdominal organs because we give them a little bit of a massage or workout, but most particularly for the digestive system and the colon. So relieving problems such as constipation. But this posture is also believed, written in the ancient texts, to be able to cure many diseases and even poison. But I don't recommend that you try drinking some poison. But it is a very strong posture, particularly as we're working into the abdominal region. Then you bring the head forward, you bring the body forward, you bring the legs forward. You then bend the left knee. You bring the left knee over the right. You take the right hand, you place it on the left knee. You take your left hand behind you in line with the spine or behind the spine. You lift up again to stretch up the vertebra, because what we want to do is to stretch the vertebra so we make space for the discs as we do this twist. And we lift up to the crown of the head and then twist around to the left side. Long, deep breathing here. So you've done today 5 beautiful ancient postures that have been well documented in books such as the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which were written over 600 years ago. So we kind of know that these postures were in circulation then. And then we bring the head forward, the body forward, legs forward, and just for a few moments, because we must always do this at the end of a practice, and this is the most important posture, is to come and lie in Shavasana, the corpse pose. So you part your legs, you slowly roll back down one vertebra at a time, with the hands facing upwards, palms facing upwards, shoulders rolling down to the mat. If you don't feel your shoulders rolling down to the mat, take them a little bit wider. Your hands and arms, and then lift the head, tuck the chin, lower the back of the head onto the mat, and then gently roll your head from side to side for a couple of times, and then bring it still and just be completely relaxed here. Try and bring the breath back to normal. And now while you're lying here, just try and feel the energy moving through the body. Try and see if you can pick up tingling or warmth or cold, but any sensation you feel in the body. This is pure awareness. Bring your awareness to your breath as well. Your gentle in and out breaths. Just observe the breath. And if any thoughts come up, just observe the thoughts. Try and become the observer of your own thoughts. This is the first step in leading us to meditation, where we can actually start to observe our thoughts. And you can stay in this for as long as you wish. And then we're going to bring the heels together, the toes together. We're going to stretch up on the mat. Stretch your body, stretch through the lower spine if you can. Then place the left hand onto the belly, bend the left knee, roll over to the right side, bring the knees in together and into the fetal position. And just rest here for a moment. And then slowly push yourself up to a comfortable seated position. And these are the 5 or maybe 6, because we did the Shavasana as well, postures that we have used today. And you can see there's always a beginner version of the postures. Even the Ardha Matsyendrasana becomes a very, very advanced posture eventually. But I just did the beginner's version with you today so you can experience it. So there's always there's something new we can always learn in yoga. So I thank you for joining me today. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.
Thank you so much, Mr. Duncan Rice and Ms. Paula Martini, for that very, very interesting discussion or interaction on episode 5 of Yoga Charcha. We definitely learned so much from you, Duncan ji. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Duncan ji, for those 5 yoga asanas. We definitely did learn so much, and I'm sure each one of us in our spare time is going to try it out. With that, we've come to the conclusion of episode 5 of Yoga Charcha. I'd like to invite Mr. CPVM Chunu from the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban to render this afternoon's vote of thanks.
Namaskar. Greetings to all of you. On behalf of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, I am honored today to deliver a vote of thanks on today's 5th episode of the program Yoga Charcha, meaning discussions on yoga. This is a series of interaction with the experts on yoga. Now allow me to thank the following online guest, Sri Kamal Maharaj ji. He is an educator, founder CEO of Vishva Shakti. for the wonderful introduction that he rendered this evening. Secondly, I'd like to thank Mr. Duncan Rice-G. He is a yoga teacher, and Ms. Paula Martini-G for having a wonderful interactions on yoga, and also about the demonstrations that were demonstrated by Sri Duncan Rice-G. The asanas were a little bit tough. My body, as we talking, I had some, some bones were cracking. So, but I hope I will start as of now to practice some of the asanas every day. To Duncan G and Paula Martini G, Danyafat, for whatever for the great work that you did this evening. To Director of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Dr. Chaichana Prakash Yogi, Sristi Harinarayan, Sri Piyush Khandelwal, thank you for taking part on today's program. To all our online participants, we'd like to say thank you for having time with us this evening. You are kindly advised to visit ICCR Durban Facebook page so that you'll be updated about all cultural activities organized by Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Durban. To all of you, Kamal Maharaj Ji, Duncan Rice Ji, Paula Martini Ji, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Namaskar.